today, what I want to offer to everyone is the ability to sort of sit down and think about what it means to uncondition the conditioning. And it's almost like when I think about it right now, I'm almost horrified. I am. I use that word horrified. I'm very conscious of my words, but I do feel horrified to realize how much we've been conditioned over time. Not just about what to wear, who to be, how to present ourselves, how to act, what's the right thing to do when you're doing this, how you must do that, all these conventional ways, what we're allowed to do, what we can't do, all the rules, all the regulations. And I'm not talking about legal, I'm talking more about in different religions, or just in social media, or in magazines, or on TV, or all these different places that over the years, and even before all of these media outlets were available for our ancestors, it's been happening for so long that all we've learned to do is really live in a state of fear. Right? To live in a state of, this is how it should be, or this is who I am because I have to be this. I can't be who I really am. I can't show the world how I really feel because it's not acceptable. And I think to myself, acceptable according to who? You know, who says that it's not acceptable? Who says that we can't actually sit in our own, what, Patricia, how you like to call it, your sovereign self, how we can't sit in our sovereign self and let go of everybody else's opinions, let go of everybody else's judgment, and who can we allow ourselves to be, right? That's where I'm at right now. And it's almost maddening to realize that I've wasted 56 years of my life being what everybody else wanted me to be or expected of me. It didn't take me until I was in my 40s. When I was in my 40s, when I realized that, hey, only then did I get to know who I am. Only then did I sort of let go of only some of the conditioning that I got and received since I was a child. And only then did I say, you know what, I'm going to start to learn about who I am and get to know this person, Ayse, and who is she, and what does she like, and what doesn't she like, and who is she when she's not being told who to be. So that's really what I'd like to talk a lot about today, and I'm going to be sharing this talk on our podcast if I can figure out how to do that, and later on. But that's really what is so important now. And I think that as people are waking up, they're starting to realize that we are so much more than we've allowed ourselves to be. And I think that the scariest part of all of this, and Patricia, feel free to jump in at any moment. I think the scariest part of all of this is that so many of the people, most of the people on this planet, when this life is over for them and they pass away or they transition, they have no idea who they are. They have no idea of what they could be. They have no idea of the strength and the skill set and the purpose of them. And that to me is frightening, and it's scary. I can't even imagine after I've woke up, or whatever you want to call it, after I've kind of been awakened and started to live my life in a more very conscious way, that the idea of my life one day being over and me having no idea who I am. And it is really a frightening thing. And if any of you that are coming in right now would love to come in and talk and give your opinions and thoughts and comments about this, I'd really, really love to hear it. And there's this saying that I just saw in the last couple of days that said, who, what, and wherever you are, If you are not continually transcending, then you are dying. So if we're not being ourselves in the best way possible, stepping into our greatness, then how are we internally evolving? How are we doing that? We're spending our entire lives worried to be accepted so that we're not judged. And yet all we do is self-judge ourselves. We try to be this person that everybody else won't judge. And yet all we do to do that is judge ourselves. And it causes that feeling of no purpose. It causes that feeling of, I don't know who I am. It causes that feeling of unhappiness and depression and anxiety and fear. Right? Fear of the future. Fear of tomorrow. So we live in the past. We live in a place that we know because it's familiar, because we know what to expect there. Even though it feels like crap, at least it's something that is not the unknown. Because stepping into ourselves is really stepping into the unknown. In so many cases, I'm still learning things about myself that I absolutely never knew. So we're constantly changing, we're constantly growing. And now we're coming into this place of where we're in the shift that we know that was coming for a long time. And now here we are in the midst of it. And we live in this place where we don't know what to do with that because it's unknown. It's unknown because we don't know who we are and how to handle it. So it's creating more fear for people. Some of us are stepping right into it. Some of us are like, yeah, bring it on, right? And then other people are afraid of tomorrow because they just don't know what's coming and they don't know what they're capable of handling because all they've ever been is something that somebody else wants them to be or what's expected of them. So the one thing I remember my father telling me when I was a kid was, and I thought it was a really negative statement. Like he said this to me when I was younger and I thought, what a negative statement, what a thing to say. And now, what a wise man. And he said, expect nothing and you will never be disappointed. And everything you get will just be a bonus. And I thought, how cool is that? Like back then I thought, whatever. And you know, the way kids are, whatever. And now I'm like, he's absolutely right. He is absolutely right. So Patricia, what are you thinking? Any comments on that?
Absolutely. We've never been taught, have we? We've never been taught how. Our civilization, our Western world lost all that knowledge, all that insight on what our body's telling us, what our minds are telling us, how to handle and work through trauma as and when it arrives. You know, you see it quite a lot, don't you? Or you can read about it at least within the shamanic kind of tribal community. If you live in that kind of tribal sense, the shaman will see when a trauma has happened to you. There may have been a death in the family, or you may have hurt yourself somehow, or some such thing has happened, and he or she will know to intervene and to find the fragments of the soul, because that's what happens in trauma. Fragments of the soul in shock fragment off and remain stuck and in hiding or numbed out or in fear for a whole entire lifetime. And then we die and we reincarnate, and still those fragments of that lifetime still remain fragmented until someone comes and helps you collect them all and bring you back to wholeness, bring you back to your sovereign self. And that's what's happened for us, I believe, in the Western world, is that we haven't got a community, we haven't got the tribesman, we haven't got the shaman that sees that and has that knowledge and that insight that's beyond this three-dimensional reality, that's actually beyond 5D consciousness as well. You know, it's that super consciousness, it's that super awareness. We don't have that person that can come in and intervene in that moment and bring that part of the soul back to the self to keep that child as whole as humanly possible as they navigate childhood and navigate teenagehood and come into young adult and stepping in truly into their adult self. And I think that's what we're seeing now. We're seeing around us, especially within this current crisis, we're seeing people reverting back to their childlike self, reverting to fawn, fight, flight, fear, or fawn. That's what's being triggered in a lot of us. We'll fight the virus, we'll run away from it, and we'll stock up on toilet roll like they did here in the UK. Or we'll just be really, really good and we'll do as our government tells us and do all the things, and then we can get back to normal. We're in fight, flight, flee, or fawn mode. And none of it represents sovereign self. None of it represents sovereignty. None of it represents the adult self, if you like. Because we've been taught to look outside of ourselves. We've been taught to look outside of ourselves for someone to direct us, to tell us what to do. I've been thinking about this a lot, and I blame Super Nanny. I don't know if you had that in Canada, but we had a show here 20 years ago called Super Nanny. I blame that kind of bringing up the children on that level. But we've all been brought up to not really step inside our sovereign selves, not step up as adults and own our stuff. We're conditioned to be either I can, I am, or I can't, I won't. It's one or the other. We're on a seesaw, if you like. And as you grow, you either become what you hate, and what you hated as or disliked as a child, or you become the very thing that you dislike and hate. But for me, throughout the last kind of 30 years of delving deep into this subject, it's not about being on that seesaw at all. It's not really about being in relation to my upbringing and those labels that were projected onto me from limited thinking and limited belief structures, mind you. Those projections that I just soaked up and took on and believed that was who I was, and that was what was true. I had to really dig deep and jump off that seesaw completely. I'm not in relation to any of those things, and it's only then when you really feel the fear and do it anyway and jump off of that and start delving in and finding those fragmented parts of the self, the younger selves that are lost and fear and in hiding and contorting and playing it small. When you find those parts that are actually looking after all of that gold for you, all of that confidence and that bravery and that courage and that happiness and that magic, they're holding on and they're protecting it in the only way they know how, in the coping strategies that they used at the age of 2 and 4 and 8. When that happens and you reconnect and reintegrate with those parts, you truly then step off that seesaw. You truly then step into your sovereign self. You truly then can start stepping out of the blame game and owning and responding and creating, being the creator of your life and your experience. And that to me has been my journey for the last kind of 30 years, and how to step out of the conditioning and into something that has always been me, that is always, infinite. Me, the I am within me is the I am within you. And it's from that sense and that space that we can start living our true aligned lives.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And you're so right. And yesterday I was so well said, by the way, Patricia. And it's even our language that's conditioned. Like yesterday I was driving, and I don't know if you have this in the UK, but we have something in Canada called reservations. And the reservation are where the natives live. So where we put our Canadian Indians. And I say it like that. That's where we put our Canadian Indians. It's disgusting. Anyways, I had a package delivered to me the other day that actually was for somebody that was on the reservation. So since I was driving by the reservation, I decided to deliver the package to their house. And I'd never really driven in to the reservation. And I drove in looking for this property, and I gotta say, it was like I had driven into another world. Just by turning that corner, I had driven into another world. The roads weren't paved. Many of the houses were falling apart. And I just almost felt myself like getting very teary-eyed, and I delivered the package and I drove out of there and I started driving, continuing my journey, and I said, that's where the indigenous people live. And then I started laughing, going, why do we call them indigenous? You know, we're all indigenous to this planet. We are all native to this planet. Why are we segregating them? And that word segregation. So why are we segregating them to some other place that has different laws and rules than the rest of us, and keeping them over there because they shouldn't be with us?
It's a very 3D paradigm, isn't it? Them and us. To divide is to conquer. There's control element within that, and it's right the way through society, isn't it? There you can truly see it. I mean, it's abhorrent. Why on earth would the roads be different just on the reservation? Why isn't the upkeep the exact same as it is on your road? You know, it is a divide and conquer scenario, that conditioning that those people are less than and these people are more than. And that's what we're seeing now, aren't we, really, with the kind of the choice around medical choice being taken away in some states and taken away in some countries. That creates a them and us society. It's a medical apartheid that's happening on that level. It's happening through race, religion, sexual orientation, in any which way. But it's very old school 3D paradigm that has no place in this new world, and that is crumbling as we speak. And that's
Yes.
part of why IAUSM exists, isn't it? It's to collaborate and to bring together and unify and integrate all that fragmented parts, all of those fragmented parts, whether it's a whole group of people or it's our inner sense. Now it is all about integrating those things, all of those parts back together.
I know. And if they'd known that we were always, like, we've always been together, and the segregation never really existed, and it was just something that we did because of conditioning, because of fear, and we kicked those people off of their own land and then put them in a box. And I'm just, I was actually getting angry as I was driving to my destination yesterday, and I was like, I don't get it. How did I drive by this whole place like this many times? I know the reservation. There's a beautiful beach there. I used to go there as a child all the time. And I'm sitting here going, how did I not know? How did I not know that was happening?
Because we're distracted. That's the other part of it, isn't it? Part of the conditioning is to distract with this shiny object over here, and this house and this job, and our lives are just a massive distraction of shiny objects to kind of work towards and never really obtain. And that's what, again, you've got that macro micro version thing that's happening on the planet. We've got that segregation. Kind of, it's hard to even put into words, isn't it?
I don't know. Why do we like to put everything into containers? Like,
containers and boxes, yeah. Well, it's control, isn't it? I don't think we do, in terms of the golden-hearted human being, the layman and laywoman of the planet. Within my little community, it's very heart-centered, golden. Everyone's out to help and support. That's my experience of it within community. It seems to be people that want to control, make money, greed. I mean, out of people's misery, people earn a lot of money out of that, don't they?
They do. They do. And then I think it was also what the light clicked off in me also when I drove through the reservation is part of me kind of thought, these people, on the reservation, the Indians, the indigenous people, maybe they kind of, they play a part in this because they kind of fall into that stereotype that we've given them, right? That we've conditioned them to believe that they are. But then when I drove through there, I was like, but how could they not?
Yeah.
How could they not think of themselves as I don't know. Like, I don't even want to say the words I'm thinking. Like, how could they not think of themselves that way when we've done this to them? I felt embarrassed about the color of my skin for a moment. And I was like, wow, what the heck?
It's owning it all, isn't it? But also, as well, not owning everything and becoming a spiritual doormat. So I've got two, spiritual doormat and spiritual thug. And one of the things with the spiritual doormat that I have mused about and thought about is that we own everything, all the shit.
As I moved through this and I kept thinking about this, I started to realize the chaos that we're in right now. So chaos is always comes before order. So, chaos and havoc are two very different things. So havoc is when just things are a disaster. There's just no rhyme or reason to what's going on. Right now, as we jump into this quantum leap and we're moving into an evolution and involutionary time. Yep. Hi, Patricia. And as we're moving into this time, and then we start to realize that we are in the chaos before the order. This is the stuff that's in the beginning before everything is going to settle into a much better world, a much better earth, the new earth, the new world, the new way that things are going to be, where none of this is going to exist anymore. None of this segregation, fear, money, power with food, all this leadership and hierarchy and type of like control and power are no longer going to be there. And that's exciting for me. And I know, Patricia, before you got cut off there, you were talking about the doormat and the thug.
Oh yeah. Yeah. The spiritual doormat and the spiritual thug, where the spiritual thug is the throwing it down everybody's throats that this is the only way and the right way to be is completely spiritual, and all of that. And then the doormat is where you own everything. It's the spiritual doormat is that you roll over and you take the blame for absolutely every indiscretion that's ever happened on the planet. And again, it's on that seesaw, isn't it? It's polarity. That's what this 3-dimensional reality is all about, is polarity. And it's about unification, jumping off that seesaw and finding that a balance and that alignment, and ownership within it, and then looking towards rather than away from, towards an outcome, towards that new earth. Because that's what we're, like you just said, that's what we are birthing, is a new earth. And no one said birth was easy. It's gloriously gory on lots of levels. And so we do have an amazing opportunity right now, because our stuff, like we said at the beginning, our stuff is being triggered. It's been a very emotive 2 years. And our safety centres have all been shunted, and so that those fears, rational and irrational fears, have come up in us, and those past conditionings, those past programs, have come to the fore. And it's about pressing the pause button and not being carried away with it, and thinking, right, this is the places that need clearing. These are the places within that need healing, and putting it out there and being attracted to someone that can help you clear your internal landscape so that you can step out of the fear program, step off that seesaw, and truly into your adult sovereign self that can make informed decisions about what you need, whether that's medically or mentally or emotionally or physically, and for your family, without looking outside of yourself for guidance. Because, over the years, the decades, the eons, we've looked towards our priests, and we've looked towards our governors, our governments, to tell us what to do, our doctors to tell us what to do. And whilst, there's a lot of clout to be said for that, you've got people that are experts in their fields. At the end of the day, you have to bring it home to see what works right for you and what isn't right for you. And if you're kind of carrying a lot of that past conditioning, it can be quite confusing to discern what's right. Are you working from your intuition, or are you working from fear? Are you running away from or towards something because of something that's happened in your past? And so it's an opportunity right now to really clear that inner landscape so that you can follow your intuition and what's right for you, your body, and your family right now, and to stop looking outside of yourself for direction and for someone to tell you what to do.
Absolutely, absolutely. And that is what we've been doing. We continually look outside of ourselves. We've done that for eons, looked outside of ourselves. And what we haven't realized until recently, and when I say recently, like in the last sort of generation or so, when we've got all these, teachers and gurus and stuff coming out of the woodwork, and it's like, wait a second, all that we ever need to know about ourselves and who we are and what we are capable of and the power that we have and the unlimitlessness of it is all inside. We've all been looking in the wrong direction. We keep looking outside for happiness. We look for others to make us happy. We look for others to bring fulfillment into our lives. We look for others to validate us. We look for others to appreciate us. We look for others to love us. When we are so self-contained. We have everything. I mean, our DNA holds our entire history of everything we have ever been. And it's amazing that we have all of this inside us. And, last night I was doing a talk and I was at the museum and I was doing a talk and I'm looking at everybody and I said, I'm going to say something to you here that you probably have never thought of. Do you realize that we are all gods inside of God? We are all creators inside of the Creator. We are all source inside of source. We are all spirit in spirit. We are that because we came from that. We think so 3D. I came from a human mother, so therefore I am human. But us humans came from somewhere. And that means that we are also that. And just knowing that and sitting with that for a minute is empowering in itself. And understanding that we are so much more than what we see in the mirror, and we always have been. We just didn't know where to look. And that to me is like, I guess it was our journey that we had to take, to get to where we are. But at the same time, I'm like, wow. I'm a very time management kind of person. I'm like, what a waste of time. Like what a waste of time. We could have been so much further ahead by now.
But that's what IAUSM's about, isn't it? I mean, that's what we're dealing with here now. That's why I invented Wiggle Bums and Wiggle Kids. It's about giving the children this awareness, seeding them with that information right now. Gosh, imagine if I didn't learn any of this stuff until in my early 30s. Imagine if I'd known that from I was a child, the different choices I could have made, the different pathways. Then again, it's that paradigm, isn't it? It's like, because of all of those choices, and I see the gold within all of that, I have my awarenesses and all of that. The only way out is in, isn't it?
Absolutely. The only way out is in. It's true. And I guess it allows us to appreciate the awesomeness of what we are. And it's like that, those kids, there's people who come from everything, they have everything, old money, whatever. They've always had everything. And sometimes they don't realize the value of what they have. And until they can work for it and earn it and get it. Right. And then I guess we've earned it. Well, some of us have. Some of us have earned it.
I've got my battle scars, definitely. Absolutely. Absolutely. But also, it's like that. It's that age-old thing. You want to save your children from having to go through, that particular landscape. It's like, we like shortcuts, don't we? And time, like this this three-dimensional reality, time is here. This is what we work with. So we've got this time buffer that we play with, because it's that, I don't know about you, but I'm experiencing that kind of manifestation, creation, should I say, rather than manifestation, that creation, that attracting the right peoples, the right opportunities, the right situations, from my core desires and intent happening really super quick now. It used to take a bit of time, but now it seems to be happening. We're getting aligned, it's happening quite quickly for this three-dimensional reality. And that's really interesting. That's really exciting.
Until you just said that, I didn't even realize it. You're right. Like, you are
Yeah.
so right. Like, now I can think about something and I'm like, yeah, this would be great. And then I can find, like, in the next day or two, if
Yeah.
not sooner, there it is.
Yeah, there's the person with it. There's the the bit of tech that I've always wanted. It just kind of like, wow, there you go. There it is. It's happening. It's really happening. Equally, if we're stuck in that conditioning of everyone's out to get me and the world's falling apart and all that fear-based
Yeah.
stuff, of course we're going to be attracting people with those stories that align with that, and
Right.
yeah, no, I never get clients. No, yeah, my business failed.
Right. And so it's right now is a super important time, more than probably ever, to really be aware of our thoughts, to really be aware of what am I asking for? What words are coming out of my mouth? What am I saying? What am I thinking? What am I wanting? What am I desiring? And, in this, and just like Patricia said, it's this world of we are able to manifest much
Well,
quicker now. Much quicker now. So if you're not careful about what you're asking for, look at what shows up at your door.
yeah,
Exactly what you're thinking. And this is one conversation that I also had with people yesterday was I said, you know what, be very careful because the universe is abundant of everything and it doesn't understand the concept of missing or not having enough. So when you say,
and
I
also,
don't have enough, or I'm missing this, the universe turns around and says, well, here's more of what you're missing. Here's some
yeah,
more missing.
yeah, it doesn't judge. There's no judgment to be had. It's no like, oh, you've been bad, so you're not going to get it. That's not how it works. It literally is literal, exactly that.
Yep. So, if you're saying I don't have enough money, then guess what? Here's more of not having enough money. If you think you don't have enough love in your life, well, here's some more of not having enough love in your life. If you think that you're not good enough at something, well, here's some more of not being good enough. Right? And
It's
it doesn't, sorry, go ahead, Patricia.
No, I just like it's so excites me because once you know the equation, I just call it flip it thinking. So I just flip it. I'm just flipping it on its head to the opposite and positive. And even if I don't truly embody it or believe it in my conscious mind, I'm saying it. I'm living as I am. Fake it till you make it. But we are living it in, we are experiencing it in real time now. We are attracting the perfect person, the perfect opportunity, the perfect situation, whether that be negative or positive impacts in our life. It's happening almost in real time. And I find all of that really exciting.
Yes, it is. It is an exciting time. And I really think that it's interesting because we're going through this time of COVID right now and, all the different levels of COVID. And I'm believing that COVID is actually the mask. It is the mask. It's keeping everyone occupied with that while we're going in through our evolution, while the changes are being made on the planet, while the changes are being made with humanity, our own internal programming, the changes are happening. Like you said, the manifesting is happening quicker, but everybody's attention is somewhere else while all this work is happening. While all of this big reprogramming is going on. And it's exciting. It's exciting. And I've chosen the spot of, I'm a big manifester. I've built IAUSM. We've done all that, but I sort of still pick the side of observation. I'm sitting back, no fear, no worry, just watching it moment by moment and watching the changes taking place. And it's fascinating. It truly... Sorry, go ahead,
Yeah,
Patricia.
it's truly unconditioning the conditioning, isn't it?
Yeah.
It is the time where within this last 2 years where your conditioning is showing itself massively. And whether you are resilient and a go-getter and making changes, whether that's in your health, in your physical body, in your business. It's also highlighting what you need to change, what you need to clear on a personal level, business level. And then if you want to bring in, you can bring in the right people to help you do that. Or you can stay, it's all choice, isn't it, at the end of the day? Or you can stay in the fear paradigm.
Right. Which is, there's just no room for it anymore. I think people are
There
starting
isn't.
to slowly realize that there's just no room for it anymore.
Mm.
And it just feels weird to be afraid of things now. It's getting to that point where it's feeling strange for people, but they don't know what else to, they don't know what else to feel because, they haven't been in a place of no fear.
Well, as you step into your sovereign self, it's not even your adult self, it's beyond adult self. You're stepping into your self. I can't explain it any other. It's a feeling for me more than anything else. And you can see the game plans, you can see the intricacies, you can see the blame game, you can see it all playing out. Like you say, you're in the observer role. It's not really, and then when you're triggered, you use your tools, whatever that may be, to clear that with yourself and bring yourself more into alignment, more whole inside this body, inside this incarnation. And then it really is a bit like watching a movie.
Yeah.
Rolling out, and it's like, well, what's real is this that I'm creating, what we're creating as IAUSM, what we're creating in our personal businesses, within our family.
So it's really about, it's about being able to stand in your own self for the first time, maybe ever, without all of the outside noise and starting to observe who you really are and what you really are. I mean, I think even the role of healer is changing. There was a time where the person who was working on you was the healer, but that's not so. It's the person who's doing the healing who is the healer. And, the person who's facilitating it is facilitating it. So even our ideas around spirituality, holistic health are expanding. Like I don't know about you, Patricia, but I find like even what I believed to be true last year, like I'm beyond that now.
It's accelerated, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's hugely accelerated, and it's filled with aha moments, and it's just like I feel like a kid, where you're kind of seeing the rainbow for the first time, and you start seeing these things and understanding them on a deeper level than you ever did, and it's like wow, this is amazing, right? So wow, and it's every day something new opens up, and it's exciting.
It is exciting. And then I was just thinking, as you were saying that, I was just thinking that, for a lot of us, we spend our lives not having to face life, our mortality, should I say. We're very distracted, we're working, we've got families, we've got kids, we've got all of that stuff. But unless something big happens in our health, we don't really have to face our mortality, really. And the last 2 years, we've had to face that, haven't we?
Yes.
The big fear of death and dying. And I think over this last 2 years, depending on how you've worked through that and accepted that and what your belief structure is around death and what happens and everything else, would probably play a massive part in how you have in your mental health and emotional well-being that you have right now. I personally, having had my near-death experience, death doesn't frighten me. I feel very sad about having to leave my family, that physical reality of not being able to hug them. And I feel sad and, heart-wrenching broken about them feeling sad about me leaving the planet. But it's not massive. I don't fear death. I don't, I've accepted my mortality because I have lived through it, whereas a lot of people haven't had to. So, that's brought up a lot of the base fears, the basic fears of being human this last 2 years. And that's something that we work with in IAUSM, isn't it? And the inner
I
child
kind of
awake.
look at it from a different point of view. But yeah, this is definitely something that we're working with on IAUSM. But I've actually stepped into my immortality and understand that I look at my body now as just, pair of pants I put on this morning.
Yeah,
Like,
no,
so,
absolutely. Yeah,
right. So
yeah.
it's just this thing. And
It's an astronaut suit.
yeah, it's just a suit so I can experience this
Yeah,
lifetime in this vessel, because it's just such a small part of what I am.
yeah,
And I
exactly.
and that's the coolest part, is because now I can feel, sense. I mean, I'm sure I'm not sensing it all for sure, but I can sense that there's so much more to me. Like I can almost step into it. It's almost like I'm watching myself from the other side of the mirror. And I'm watching this version of me playing this life.
Yeah, it's
And
like avatars.
yeah, exactly, right? So that's a perfect word, right? So
Mm.
it's this avatar of me here. And the other thing that I've sort of been very excited about in the last few months is that I've also realized, and I don't know how I didn't know this before, but there is no time. So I'm a big lover of past lives and future lives and that kind of thing. And when I realized, wait a second, how can there be a past life if there's no time? Right? So then it's an alternate lifeline. So there's avatars of me in other places.
Oh, yes, absolutely. And we can connect to those avatars in other places.
Right.
I love doing that, and taking my.
So it's like really taking that and learning. So when I taught, and when I teach past life regression, and I do it a lot with my clients up and out. So it's like when I did it, we would always go into those lives looking for trauma. And it's only been in the last couple of months where I've been like, Ayse,
Yeah, you can find all the good stuff.
there's all these resources in there too, right? There's not
Yeah,
just the trauma to heal. It's
no,
like, just like in this life, I built a ton of resources. My avatars did it in other lives too.
absolutely. So we've done a lot of work with the pregnant mummies that go to the avatars that have had really beautiful births. And then we download the insights and the wisdom and the strength and the whatever it is that they find there to help them birth in this timeline. That's
Right.
quite exciting.
Isn't
And
it?
also,
It's awesome.
yeah, and the businesses as well, like lots of work with people who then jump alternate worlds, quantum worlds, to businesses that are fully supported and successful and all of that, and then seeing their bank balance and grabbing the downloads or apps that they need and then bringing them back to the now. That really excites me.
That is crazy. I never even thought. So I'm going to do a lot of more traveling, but
Yeah,
it's so amazing. I'm calling myself the soul traveler now. Like I'm just traveling through all my avatars, because it's super exciting. It's all of these gems of wisdom, which, by the way, is in our DNA. Like we're
it
holding
is.
on to our whole Akashic history inside of each one of these vessels, which is
The
like
whole one.
crazy.
Yeah. And once you do that as well and you connect the pathway to those various avatars, that pathway's there. You can access them as you're walking down the road or driving your car or having a little chat. You can chat with them as easily as me and you are chatting now.
Yeah.
And you can swap information and resources and wisdom
Which
anytime.
it's
You don't have to get into like,
super
yeah,
exciting. Like it's just amazing to me, who and what we are. And I guess if we said this hundreds of years ago, they would have like burned us at the stake. But
burned us at the stake.
but now it's like, yeah. And so here's one more piece of conditioning, as we're sort of going to be wrapping this up shortly, but check this out. We have been told, and this is just a thought. So since you do this work too, Patricia, I'm going to bend your mind a little bit on this one. So since there is no time, not if, since there is no time, we've always been told, like in movies and, we hear all these things, that you can't change the past, you'll change the timeline, right? So what if we caught one of our avatars, or they caught us at a decision-making point? Or can we go back? When I say back, you know what I mean? Going back to that point, that specific moment, and changing their decision. And saying, what if you did this instead?
Oh, I do that all the time. That's
Right.
part of the, that's like, I'm not into those terms and conditions that you can't go back and change time. Fuck that. No. No, what's the point? Otherwise, we don't go back to just to observe a crappy old timeline, do we? No, we can go back and we can expand and enhance those decision makings all the time, and it's like, again, sometimes those decisions, they want to make those decisions because there's a higher purpose to those decisions. There's a higher purpose for their soul evolution. And it's about giving choice, isn't it? And that, again, we've got consent and free will with all of our avatars, with all of our alternate selves. And we've got, we've come in with what we want to experience and how we want to experience it. But going back and making those decisions and doing those decisions differently, that's where, especially with, when you're working with a client, that's where it really alters how we view the trauma that we have experienced in this timeline, knowing that a younger self, so I've gone back to, and taking clients back to their little 14-year-old self or 18-year-old self. And in that moment, they have made a different decision. And I truly believe that that 14-year-old or 18-year-old then goes on to a different alternate world, even though my client is still sat in front of me and has experienced what she's experienced, the impact of which alters on a DNA cellular situation. They'll heat up, their heart rate will go faster. Things shift, things shift, not just for them, but also parents, mothers, grandparents.
Ancestral line. Yes, absolutely.
Yeah. And their kids, they start responding differently. There was one woman I was working with who was Russian, had very hard upbringing. Her mother, very dissociated and harsh. She did this huge change where we went back to being a baby, and the mother, instead of dismissing her and having her put on the bottle and not really, not having, I think she had probably postnatal depression, but not having anything to her, she changed her mind. She had the decision to change her mind. So she took that baby to her breast. She breastfed her baby, and her and my client and the baby stayed in this womb-like container, and they were completely loved up, and there was a deep connection between baby and mum. Then we finished the session. She comes back about a week later, having gone back to her mum's house, and her mum was reminiscing about how she used to breastfeed her.
Wow. And
that's not what happened. That's not what this client has ever experienced. She's never experienced any connection with her mum. On this time that she went back a week later, there was this, oh, darling, I haven't seen you cuddle. She'd never had a cuddle from her before. And then she brought up how she used to love, and she really misses, she was thinking the other day how she really used to love the breastfeeding of her and her kid, of her siblings. And that is complete, never happened.
Well, I guess it did happen, though.
No, it did happen. Yes,
it didn't happen, but then she made it happen, and then it did happen.
And that's the memory. That's how squiffy it all, and how beautiful it all is. And that is the level of influence that we can have as human beings.
Right. So amazing.
That's huge. Yeah.
Patricia, thank you so much. I always have to cut these off because these kinds of talks, because I really could go on for days.
Yeah, same.
You know what I mean? It's so interesting. So we'll be back again next week with some more. And thank you so much, Patricia, for everything you're sharing. Thank you for those of you that have been popping in and out and listening to us today. And please do come back. We're going to be here every week at the same time with some great new topics and some great new discussions, and we would love to hear from you. And check us out in IAUSM. So IAUSM.com, which is the international, what is it? The International Academy of Universal Self-Mastery? Oh my gosh. So IAUSM.com, IAUSM.com, and come and check us out. This is a place where we're building a real community of change.
Lovely. Thank you. Thank you, Ayse. Thank you, everybody.
I'll talk to you later.
Bye, darling.
Bye-bye.